Okay, let's talk about Cthulhutech, which is one of my favorite role-playing games and definitely my favorite science fiction game. The name already implies that it's heavily inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft, but also there's the tech part, so the science fiction element is very strong in it.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.
Yeah, the influences of many different animes is definitely there. Animes like Akira, like Guyver Bio-Boosted Armor, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, like Robotech, and others like that. And the book mentions them, and you know, if you read it, you can definitely realize how heavily it's influenced by them. The setting itself is centered around this very futuristic science fiction, giant robot action, you know, monster horror investigation type of theme. The basic story of the setting is that at one point humanity discovers this other world, this realm, this other realm of these Cthulhu-style monsters and ancient gods that's full of arcane energy. Now, they built this kind of machine called the D-Engine, which runs on the arcane energy and thus is a bottomless fuel source. And because of this D-Engine, humanity is able to rise into technological innovations that we couldn't at the time, because we have a bottomless fuel source of arcane energy, and we come up with stuff like nanobots, like mechs, like space travel on a whole other scale and this sort of stuff. But also because of the discovery of this realm, a lot of cults spring up. A lot of cults start to worship the beings that inhabit these realms and use their power and their influence to gain momentum and strength in the world. And because of this new technology that humanity has been able to build thanks to the D-Engine, one of the big innovations is space travel and space colonization. And once humanity gets to this space colonization stage, another species takes notice of that. And that species is a sentient insect-like Plutonian race called the Migo, who have already traveled across the solar system and who use Earth secretly as a source for resources. And they do not want humanity to colonize space because that's their deal, and they don't want humanity to find out about their existence because that would hinder their chances at using Earth as a source for resources. So they decide that there has to be a way to push the humans back and not harm Earth itself too much as a resource well for them, and also not reveal their own presence. What they do is they create a clone army. Now, they are very familiar with Earth and with humanity and that sort of thing, so they know how humans work, enough so that they can create a clone army. And they give these clones a jet black skin and red eyes to inspire fear in humans. At least that's what they hope the effect will be. And these clones will be dumped on a battleship and given this false idea, this false memory, this false history of being members of this conqueror empire across the galaxy that is on its route to conquer Earth. And they are of this great warrior race, this great warrior culture called the Nazari. And these jet black skinned, red-eyed Nazari go to Earth and wage war on humanity. And because of this outside threat from another world, basically, humanity bands together, all nations band under one roof, and they form the New Earth government, the NEG. And a huge war breaks out between the Nazari and humans, and this war is fought through with mechs and with futuristic weaponry and all this sort of stuff. It's very bloody, very brutal, and it only ends once the Nazaris, who were first created, who were told to tell this fabricated lie of their culture and of their empire and this conquest and all these great things about their race, spill the beans scenes and let all their brethren know that it was all a lie. They couldn't take the lie anymore, so they decided to tell all their brethren that it's all a lie, it's all a fabrication, we are really clones of humanity. And that inspires all the Nazadi to throw down their arms and surrender if humanity allows them to coexist with them on Earth and accept them. And that's what happens. That's a nutshell version of it all, but that basically happens. Humanity and Nazadi live together and coexist in the world. Now, the Migo don't like this. The Migo, the space insects, see this and feel like, what the fuck, that didn't work, so let's just screw this original plan of not letting them see us, and let's just park our giant hive ship right next to Earth and just conquer that shit. And they just systematically start to conquer Earth from the North Pole and from the South Pole, and just conquering Earth from from northward and from southward. They're conquering basically step by step in this vertical line from downwards and upwards. And now humanity and Nazadi have banded together, and they together fight the tyranny of this invading force of the Migo. But at the same time, there's also the cults. During this time, they have been flourishing and they have been gaining more power and momentum. And as they have done so, they have become a much more of a viable threat. They have brought about, giant monsters, and they have gained influence. Some of the cults are operating like medieval war bands, like the Rapine Storm is one of the cults, and it's just spreading all across Central Asia, and it's just pillaging and destroying everything in its path with giant monsters and with just this brutality to them. And at the same time, there's other cults like the Children of Chaos, who have infiltrated like the giant corporations, the Chrysalis Corporation, and therefore in very like this same way as Pentex is in Werewolf and other corporations in other science fiction fantasy settings, they are trying to influence and brainwash people through this kind of subtle influence of being part of their daily lives and part of their consumption and this sort of stuff. And then there's like the Esoteric Order of Dagon and all these different cults that are raging across the world. And humanity has built giant angels to battle these enemies with, these giant robots that are kind of sentient, but that you pilot with telepathy and that sort of stuff. So there's all this shit going on, and it's basically a three-way dance between the humans banded together with the Nazadi against the Migo invading from space and the cults that are spreading across the world. And humanity and Nazadis are of course defending Earth from these two threats, but the Migo, for example, are fighting both sides as well. They are also fighting the cults because they know that if the cults gain too much momentum and bring about these ancient dead gods and all this stuff, they're going to be too powerful for the Migo to take on, and the Migo want the Earth as it is. They want to preserve all the resources they can harvest from Earth, and of course the cults want to destroy everybody and bring about all these dead gods and all this sort of stuff. So it's everybody against everybody. So that's basically the gist of the setting's story. It's a setting where war is going on. It's a very brutal world in that sort of sense, but if the game is set somewhere where battles are not waged, and if like they are in indirect locations having to do with the war and that sort of stuff, there's much peace in the world. There's like martial law everywhere. There's like strict martial law, and there's a pretty fascist way of handling law and propaganda and all these sort of things. It kind of reminds me of a mixture of this kind of Gene Roddenberry-esque future and also this kind of Starship Troopers type of future, in the sense that since all the nations have banded together and brought about this New Earth government, racism, nationalism, and sexism and these sort of things have almost completely, gone away from the world. Of course, they still exist exists, but in such small portions that they are not visible to the naked eye, unless you are, targeted by them, of course. But to the ordinary citizen, it's as good as gone, pretty much. And the reason why Starship Troopers is because there is this very strong method of, handling information, how everything is presented to the people in this kind of propaganda-esque way. There's such a huge threat, and the leaders of the world are sure that there is a huge chance that humanity may fall victim in this conflict. So they do not want any sort of panic or even the thought of panic coming to the minds of its citizens. So it's involved in this huge misinformation campaign where they just throw brotherhood and friendship and camaraderie and happy times and sunshine and this sort of stuff at you while all the horrors of the world are going on. It's very quick to praise heroes and honor and loyalty and all this sort of stuff, but at the same time, the world is a very horrible place. And at the same time also, criticizing the government openly is an offense that you can get arrested for. And so there is this kind of fascist gulag type of mentality, and people are looking out for spies and occultists, and that sort of stuff. So you still are able to in your own home and in privacy and that sort of stuff to air your real opinions and that sort of thing. But publicly, that's an outright crime and that sort of stuff. So that's basically the setting. When you're planning to play this game in this setting, you have three choices of loyalties, basically, where your loyalties lie and which section of this war is your game focused on. There is the New Earth government, basically focusing on the military aspects of it, mechs and all this sort of stuff. Then there's the Engel project. The Engel project is a separate project from independent from the government, and that's the project with the giant Engel robots that you telepathically pilot and that sort of stuff. And then as a third one, there is the Eldritch Society, a secret society formed by defectors of one of these of the Children of Chaos, and they wage a shadow war with these holy warriors, these taggers, these people who have been fused with these monsters of that other world, where they can activate this monster form and battle against the influences of these cults. And they are basically good guys, they are holy warriors, but they are in a secret society because, if the government sees you in a monster form, they'll just expect you to be part of the cults and, attack you all the same and all this sort of stuff. So the three choices basically are whether you want to play in the government, in the Engel Project, or in a secret society, in the Eldritch Society. And all of these groups have something the others don't when it comes to character professions. Only the government has mech pilots, and only the Engel Project has Engel pilots, and only the Eldritch Society has taggers, those people who can shapeshift into monsters. So, you need to choose one and focus on that. It would be very sporadic, very chaotic to have different players be of different loyalties with different authority figures commanding them to do completely separate things. Now, when it comes to characters, there's all sorts of character professions you can pick, whether it's like mech pilots or Engel pilots or taggers or investigators or soldiers or arcanotechnicians or anything like that. Some people have criticized the setting for having basically for forcing players to spread out, because if somebody's piloting a mech and somebody's an investigator, they can't go to the same places at all times. But I come from the school of Vampire the Masquerade and that sort of stuff, where half of the time the players aren't together. So it's something that you need to take into consideration. Perhaps have a small enough number of players where the turns won't take too long and people won't get bored, or just keep the turns fairly short. Do that kind of movie style of thing where like Return of the Jedi, jump from Luke and Vader fighting and and then jump to the space battle, and then jump to Endor and that sort of stuff. You need to keep it flowing pretty and bouncing pretty quickly in these short-term ways to keep people from not not getting bored. In my eyes, even though the game has an insanity meter on the character sheet, I think it emphasizes a lot more on the warfare and giant robot and the science fiction action aspect than the investigative Lovecraftian aspect. That's just the way I've seen it thus far, even though I'm running the game as an investigative, more Lovecraftian, occult-centered type of game. So that doesn't mean you have to run it that way. It's just most likely that if somebody has picked up the book, they're expecting that sort of action, monsters versus robots type of game. When it comes to the rules and the mechanics of the setting, it's fairly simple. You only roll 10-sided dice, and the rank you have in your skill is the amount of dice you're rolling, and you add your score that you get from your dice to your attribute number. And it's fairly simple that way, though there is one gimmick that I haven't seen any other game have, and it's kind of this poker style gimmick in your die rolls where you're trying to find a good hand. There's 3 ways of taking a high score out of the dice you rolled. One way is to just pick out the one die that has the highest number, and that's the number you're gonna add to your attribute score. Or if you roll more than one die and there's doubles, if there's let's say there's a 6 and then there's there's 4 and a 4. The 6 is the single highest number, but if you have 2 4s, you can add those together. Together they're 8. That's higher than that 6. So that's a better number. And if you roll 3 or more dice, you can have a straight. If something is like 4, 5, 6. Even if you rolled a 10, if there's also a 4, 5, 6. That's 15. That's a lot more than the highest single die that you got. So, there's this little element there that I haven't seen in other games, and it's really fun. Now, as final words, when it comes to the source books for this game, I think they are very hit and miss. Some are extremely useful, and some are very not useful. For example, the Metaplot books, I would not recommend getting the Metaplot books, because they make every effort to keep the status quo. Nothing ever goes onward. There's just, it's just fluff that doesn't lead anywhere, really. And, there's the Mortal Remains book that details these settings, more intricate details about how politics work in the New Earth government and all that. And I've read through it. It's just the same. It's like yeah, there's a Supreme Court, and there's a Congress, and there's a Senate, and there's a president and a vice president, and 4-year terms as a president, and only 2 terms per president, and that sort of stuff. And they are just with different names. Instead of a Supreme Court, it's something like the highest council or something like that. It's kind of, not needed. In the book, though, I think the Nazadi information is useful. But then you got something like the Vademecum companion book, and I think that's almost mandatory because it has character professions like parapsychics, like zoners, and it has races like xenomixes and white xenomixes, and I think those are very useful. And there's only 4 different type of taggers in the core rulebook, and in the Vademecum there's 4 more. That's double. So I say if you're gonna get the Cthulhutech core book, I suggest get the Vademecum companion book as well. With all the others, that's kind of optional, but definitely don't get the Metaplot books. Sorry for the developers if they happen to be listening for some reason, but the Metaplot books suck for this for keeping the status quo with in this vice grip that it must not move forward. So yeah, it's not that engaging to read. So yeah, that's Cthulhutech and all I have to say for it at this point.